So I was going to do videos, my next videos on a few different topics. One of them was just the general destruction that leftist policies cause and leftist politicians cause. How we cause problems by voting for leftist politicians. Then I saw a bit from C-SPAN, which basically covers our Congress and all its excitement in real time. I saw a bit from C-SPAN with Representative Veazey from Texas, Representative Swalwell from California, which you can imagine how left-leaning a person like that's got to be, a Representative Tim Ryan from Ohio. All Democrats. And anyway, these guys were talking about student debt and how hard it is to get on your feet these days because of student debt and all that. Right, and as far as the student loans go and all that, as usual, they just miss the point and blame Republicans, and that's it. And never mind the leftist policies that just throw more and more money at things, and the unionized employees, from the professors to the janitors to the groundskeepers, none of that's addressed as far as why education is costing more. And even at that, the average college student graduates college with $30,000 in debt. I'd say that's a good investment for a person's future for about the price of a new car. So anyway, I'll address that stuff in more detail in the future, but I put all those on the back burner. Boehner said he was going to retire at the end of the month. And end of October, this month, and that there'd be a new election. Well, they were in the middle of this election, and Representative Kevin McCarthy, who was generally seen as the favorite, and who is actually the majority leader, was generally seen as the favorite to be the new House Speaker. Since he was basically there by Boehner's good graces, basically that would be more of the same. And of course, the more conservative wing of the Republican Party did not want that. They would not want that. They've been trying to oust Boehner, and they could not get enough people to go along with that. So meanwhile, we're stuck with Boehner in this new Congress, and still, no one is standing up to Obama. Now, McCarthy said that he was going to pull out of the race. And stuff like that happens, and instead of going along with the election, Boehner is still being heavy-handed about this. Boehner is still throwing his weight around. He still will not respect the wishes of the people. The whole reason that Boehner gave for stepping down is some of his members already lost elections in their home districts because of primary challenges. And Boehner said he did not want to force people to decide between him and face possible repercussions in the House, and then facing repercussions in their home districts. But now he's basically reneged on that and revealed himself yet once again for the two-faced son of a bitch he is. And I don't normally say that about people, but the whole purpose was to avoid this kind of street fight, which, I said in a prior video about this that, I think that is what the Republican Party needs. It's just something that people really hash it out, really say what's on their mind, and just have an all-out brawl over this. So you know where everyone stands. That is what is so lacking in American life, and not just in politics, is that people do not know where they stand with each other. And that's dishonest and confusing and just unethical. But this Boehner said that he was going to stand down so that the party could elect someone. His guy winds up getting torpedoed, and this isn't really confirmed at this point, but there's a possibility this was leaked by the DHS that he was having an affair with another congressperson. And I say that, I want to stress that is not confirmed, but regardless, he has dropped out. Boehner's guy has dropped out. So what does Boehner do? Does he allow it to be a choice among the Republican members in Congress of whether they want Chaffetz from Utah or Webster from Florida. Now, for the little I know of this, I'd rather have Webster, but either of them would be preferable to McCarthy or Boehner. Boehner didn't get his guy, and Boehner is even hinting that he could stay in the speaker's chair longer because of this. In other words, he's going back on his word of stepping down so that the Republicans in Congress do not have to choose between loyalty to him and loyalty to the constituents at home. The constituents are the driving force here. That is who they are there to represent, and I've been over this in the past in my other video about Boehner, and I've mentioned this several times, that they are there to represent their constituents. They are not there in Washington to represent John Boehner. And if they side with John Boehner, along with Boehner's wishes over the wishes of their constituents, they are representing John Boehner. And that is not what they're there for. There are a few Republican representatives, and I don't remember their names. I did mention them in a video in the past, but they did stand against Boehner because that's what their constituents wanted. Their constituents wanted them to vote a certain way. There's always a risk that they're going to lose out on money for re-elections and because of that. But they chose to do what they thought was right. They chose to side with the people that sent them there. And that is one thing I admire so much about Ted Cruz. He doesn't care that he gets on the nerves of others in the Senate. That is not his job. The people that hired him are the people that he has to worry about and the people that he has to be friends with. Now, hinting that he's going to stay in the speaker's chair longer because his guy is stepping out of the race. If they were on the losing team in a neighborhood football or baseball game where they'd take their football or they'd take the baseball home. Now, yeah, if they owned the bat and the baseball, they wouldn't play unless they were winning. And that is not what democracy is about. That is not rule of law, which is what a constitutional republic is supposed to be about. This is more like a banana republic. And John Boehner, in this case, is making it like one. If John Boehner really meant what he said, that he's stepping down to avoid forcing the Republican representatives to not have to choose between loyalty to him and risking losing in a primary challenge in their home district, he'd still step down. He'd respect the wishes of a majority of the Republicans in Congress. And he's not doing that. He wants to leave his imprint on this Congress even after he's gone. John Boehner wants someone in the Congress that's just as spineless as him, that sides with the part of the Republican Party that has been siding with the Democrats. And that is the whole problem in this nation, is that leftism is taking over. Boehner's stepping down, but he still wants to see that happen even after he's gone. And that is not right of him. He mentioned when he was stepping down, he cares about the institution. He didn't mention caring about the American people. He didn't mention caring about the Constitution. And it's obvious from most of this bunch in Washington, D.C. that they do not care about the Constitution. Barack Obama does not care about the Constitution. Most of the people in the Congress do not care about the Constitution. And worst of all, the people on the Supreme Court do not care about the Constitution. The people that are really fighting to return to a constitutional government, such as Ted Cruz, are vilified by the Republicans, by the Democrats, by the media, and he's fighting for the Constitution. These people go to Washington and they take an oath to uphold the Constitution, to defend against enemies, foreign and domestic. And they are not doing that. They are joining in the attack on our Constitution, and thus are joining in the attack on our freedoms. John Boehner needs to go. He said he was going to go. People were relieved he was going to go. And now, because he's not getting a carbon copy of him in the speaker's chair, it looks like he might not go. And I said when he first announced that he was going to step down at the end of October, that I thought that the Republicans should try to oust him anyway. They should have done that when this Congress first started. They haven't. They didn't. And we were stuck with Boehner again. They aren't taking this fight to Obama. We need to defund Obamacare. It's a mess. People have lost their jobs over it. That excise taxes cost a lot of people in the medical device industry their jobs. And I've been over that in other videos. I'd encourage you to look through my other videos on this. But this is something that this fight needs to be vocal. It needs to be public. It needs to be loud. It needs to be in front of the American people. And I've mentioned that is why I've lost all respect for Devin Nunes, because like McCarthy, he has sided with Boehner in this attack on our freedoms because they are not willing to fight. And they always say, we have to fight later, now's not the time. No, you have to fight now. Now, you may not win, but you have to fight now. You have to keep this public, you have to keep it vocal, you have to keep it loud. You never know who you might convince. You never know who you might influence. You never know who might say, hey, you know what? These Democrats, these leftists, really are destroying our way of life. And they really are destroying our freedoms. And I've said again, and this isn't being too dramatic, but the revolutionary generation, they didn't know they were going to win. They knew they were fighting tyranny, and they knew that was the right thing to do. And they had property, they had houses, they had farms, they had businesses. Paul Revere, as just one example, had a metalsmith shop. He had things to lose. These people had houses, they had businesses, they had jobs, they had livelihoods, they had families, all on the line here. And if the Crown had won that Revolutionary War, if Britain had won, King George quite likely would have hanged all of them if they'd been caught. They were putting everything on their lines. Like I said, their jobs, their businesses, their farms, their families, their houses, and even their lives. That is where we are very soft. We are spoiled by the comforts we have, that we often will not do the right thing because of that. That's where we really are not as principled, not nearly as principled as that bunch that fought the Revolutionary War. And how cynically we're flushing away what they fought so hard for. If you read about some of those battles, such as at Trenton, and how rough that was on those soldiers, and the whole crossing the Delaware thing, how hard they had to fight and how many sacrificed so much, including the ultimate sacrifice, and how many people over the years have fought. You know, they fought to establish this country and these freedoms and this Constitution. How many fought to maintain it? And World War II is probably the prime example of that, of how many people over there fought the tyranny of the Third Reich. And we are so cynically flushing away all that sacrifice by basically just handing our freedoms away. So yes, we're all part of the problem. We aren't nearly as skeptical of our government as we should be. We aren't nearly as watchful of our government as we should be. It takes a watchful eye over government by the citizens to make sure that government doesn't become tyrannical, and we're doing a horrible, horrible job of it. But like I said, John Boehner, he does need to go still. And if he is going back on his word and not stepping down at the end of this month like he said, he'll continue to be a destructive force in our country. And he needs to be ousted. I'd encourage people to write their congressman over this, that man needs to go. I've already done it. I emailed my congressman this morning over it. I think he's been thoroughly corrupted, but I still wrote to him. And we need to apply that kind of pressure to the people in government. John Boehner needs to be ousted if he goes back on his word and does not leave by the end of this month.